Hello and welcome to Not Now in Theaters. My name is Will Turntail and I'm a writer and film fan from California. This episode is all about Babe, Pig in the City. Yeah, I know what some of you could be thinking. Why are we diving into a failed sequel to a kids movie? Trust me, appearances are completely deceiving here. This isn't for kids at all. Many people have called this movie a horror movie in disguise. I wouldn't go that far, but it wasn't what people expected. So I'm eager to get into this daring but potentially misguided movie with you. Before we start, a reminder that making films is hard and you have to respect that. So any criticisms are meant to be constructive. This review will contain spoilers. I'll do my best to call them out for you when they come out. Okay, let's get into the movie. Babe, Pig in the City review. George Miller's edgy sequel. Babe is an all-time children's classic that will charm you to bits. Just not the bacon kind. Based on a 1983 novel, it's a talking animal movie that tells the story of a young a young pig who, adopted by a dog, herds sheep with kind words over barks and nibbles. And it was a success by all accounts. It grossed $254 million at the box office against a $30 million budget. It was nominated for 7 Academy Awards, winning for Best Visual Effects. Conditions were ripe for the producers to cash in with a sequel, recycle the feel-good themes, play that catchy song again, and watch the profits roll in. But this producer was legendary filmmaker George Miller. Mad Max or Happy Feet, he doesn't do safe. The budget was tripled, the pastoral setting was scrapped, and Miller went all in this time, co-writing and stepping into the director's chair for Babe, Pig in the City. Though that may be down to friction between him and the original's director, Chris Noonan. But while I saw Babe as a child and loved it, I was a young man with my attention elsewhere by the time Pig in the City came out. Audiences didn't bite either. Against its $90 million budget, the film brought in just $69 million, with parents complaining it was too dark for children. Whatever that means. Kidding. But critics like Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert called it a better movie than the original. So is Babe, Pig in the City a good movie? Let's find out. The plot of Babe, Pig in the City. Picking up just after the last film, Pig Babe returns from the sheep herding contest in a happy parade. All looks well at Hoggett Farm. But when farmer Arthur Hoggett tries to fix the water pump, Babe sets off a chain of events that injure the boss. With Hoggett out of commission, it's up to his wife, Esme Cordelia Hoggett, to tend the farm. Things get worse. Men from the bank warn the Hoggetts that they're behind on their mortgage and threaten them with eviction. To save the farm, Esme sets off with Babe for a sheep herding competition and a generous appearance fee. But when an airport drug-sniffing dog incorrectly identifies Esme's bags, the ensuing interrogation causes them to miss their flight. With their flight home a few days away, Esme and Babe find shelter at a hotel run by Miss Flume. Flume secretly shelters many animals, including cats, dogs, chimpanzees, and an orangutan. When a series of events sees Babe separated from Esme, he's left on his own amongst the animals of the hotel. Can Babe survive in the cruel landscape of the city? And will Esme be able to locate him? Walk you through this fine cast. Babe is voiced by E.G. Daly. Arthur Hoggett is played by James Cromwell again from the left, returning from the first movie. Esme Cordelia Hoggett by Magda Zubanski, I think is also returning from the first movie. And Miss Flume is played by Mary Stein. And you can read the rest of the main cast here in the transcript. There are a ton of names, many of which you might recognize, like Hugo Weaving, who plays Rex, because it has a very large cast with all this voice acting. All right, so let's talk about what's good in this movie. First up, it's now that's camera work, which is worth 3 points. George Miller and this crew could make a compelling documentary about standing in line. Even minor events in this film feel impressively cinematic, and when it wants your attention, it delivers something special. There's the performance of clown Fugly Flume, yeah, that's actually his name, and his animal performers that goes wrong. It ends with Fugly watching his stage burn. His act in ruins, all Fugly can do is stare. He's comforted with a hand on his shoulder by the orangutan Thelonious. Babe also pauses to note the carnage as sad opera rolls. It's an arresting scene, a long, odd, deadpan moment of comedy and tragedy. And there's the understated sweetness in another scene when Thelonious the orangutan helps Esme hang up her laundry. Drawing our attention to the contrast in their shapes, we get just the orangutan and human shadows as they work. Mice swoon Elvis's "Are You Lonesome Tonight?" in the foreground on a cart of fresh-picked tomatoes. It's a subtle but jaw-dropping scene, the orangutan and human a delightfully odd pairing. Next, it's the film's grown-up themes, which add 2 points. Pig in the City teaches the tender-hearted babe harsh lessons on life outside the farm's safety net, adding realism to the fantasy world. The animals in the city take advantage of his naivety. They steal his suitcase or trick him into a conflict with guard dogs, leaving him baffled at their selfishness or running for his life. And while Miss Flume gives sanctuary to animals, her neighbor Hortense is happy to call animal control to come and round them all up. Babe's alone and hungry for most of the movie, trying not to give up. Not to worry, Babe's kindness will, spoiler alert, win the day by the film's end, but he loses the innocent veil of farm life. Babe's difficult journey gave me more appreciation for the neighborly safe haven Hoggett Farm stands for, making it a stronger movie. And the film is a tale of just one city, and a farm, which adds 2 points. The two main settings, Hoggett Farm and the city, complement the storytelling. They are artfully exaggerated to match the tone of their scenes. Hoggett Farm is a cartoonish pastoral world fit for tall hobbits. We watch Esme call out for Babe in a bright red dress. She's standing outside a storybook crooked farmhouse, chickens strewn about. The sequence of events that injures Farmer Hoggett reminds me of a 1940s Disney Goofy cartoon. With its "if only" narration, it's tragic but more comic relief than grotesque. Even bad events at the farm lack real teeth. But the story leaves this agrarian setting behind for the grind of the city. And the mini metropolis is a stand-in for all the world's cities, both thematically and physically. When Babe gazes through the porthole window of his upstairs apartment, we see monuments like the Hollywood sign, Eiffel Tower, and Golden Gate Bridge. And the city has little bridges over water as if we're in Venice, characters written on a billboard you might find somewhere in Asia. And then we have to discuss that this is for kids, which adds 2 points. Audiences complained Pig in the City is too dark for a children's movie, and it has a few unsettling moments. In a scene as grim and powerful as it reads, Babe loses hope after being chased by a guard dog. Slow motion kicks in, the editing and narration turning almost horrific as he processes the unfortunate and cruel events that led to the moment. Then he stops running, turns to the dog, and asks simply, "Why?" before he's struck. It punches you straight in the emotions, but it gets worse. Once Babe is safe, the dog falls in, his face stuck in the water while he struggles, unable to free himself. And it goes on long enough to get uncomfortable. The other animals are content to let him drown, excusing their inaction. As much as that scene is possibly the cinematic apex of the film and the lowest point of Babe's journey, it is rawer than we expect in children's fare. But one of the original Babe's strengths is balancing a feel-good movie with realism. It has some all-too-honest savage moments. In Babe's first scenes, he says goodbye to his biological pig mom as she's taken off to slaughter. Later in the movie, his good friend Ma is killed in a vicious dog attack. So while Pig in the City hits a little harder, it leaves out some of the original's levity, tipping the scales a little darker. Because when the pig is down this time, nobody's dancing jigs and singing to cheer him up. But it still has a happy ending and no actual violence. So is it for kids? Maybe not the littlest ones, no. So now let's talk about what I didn't quite like in this movie. First up, it has jokes that don't land, which takes off 2 points. I enjoyed Ferdinand, Babe's anxious duck sidekick, and a few porcine-faced strangers lend a helping hand in some crucial moments. But the rest of the humor? Well, gags in the movie include dumping huge buckets of glue on Esme, a court reporter scrambling to keep up with Esme's rambling plea to a judge, and Esme donning inflatable clown pants. Yeah, it's not the stuff of classics, and while comedian Stephen Wright voices Bob the chimpanzee, it comes to nothing. You can see why Wright was cast. Bob's a muttering curmudgeon with plenty of crank factor. but Bob lacks the sharp observational humor or one-liners that made Wright famous, and how this movie could use one or two. And then we have to discuss the film's head-scratching climax, which takes away 2 points. And a spoiler alert here, so if you don't want to hear the ending of the movie, go ahead and use that chapter skip. The movie ends with a bunch of clowning around, literally. The animals find themselves in a large ballroom at a high-class charity dinner. Miss Flume and Esme, who is wearing Uncle Fugly's inflatable clown pants, battle the restaurant staff for the animals. Some say it's a bizarro homage to Thunderdome, as in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Esme grabs banners from the ceiling and swings around, trying to free Babe from the clutches of a restaurant chef. Oddly motivated to fight her for him? It's bizarre and just not that amusing. And it's a lost opportunity, as the heroes square off with villains they have no prior connection to. Since the animal control agents took a little too much joy rounding up Babe and his friends, how about some retaliations, say Home Alone style? So adding it all up, Babe, Pig in the City earns 5 points. On my scale of let's not watch, should I watch or go watch this movie, that's gonna land it in the should I watch territory. After all these years, I'm glad I watched Babe, Pig in the City. It dares to push how dark you can go in a children's movie. And may its gorgeous visuals add themselves to the film library that haunts my brain. But no matter how masterfully told, it doesn't make me laugh. And its lackluster climax sees it go out with a whimper. If you're a George Miller fan or appreciate a movie that defies expectations, I recommend you give this movie a second chance. But if you're in the market for a happy little kids movie, yeah, go with the original. The legacy of Babe, Pig in the City. So what's the legacy of Babe, Pig in the City? Well, it's worth repeating that people were highly disappointed in this movie at release, but it has gone on to find the people that more identify with what this movie is actually about, what with the darker themes and dog-eat-dog nature of the film. I can't understand the logic there, though. I like the movie as it stands now, but I would have been irritated if I bought a ticket for a Babe sequel, thinking it would be a joyous matinee with my kids, only for it to scare the crap out of my children and put us all in a bleak, downbeat mood. I'd have loved the movie, but not a perceived bait and switch. But you have to say that this is such a George Miller movie, no? I mean, yes, we're about to draw parallels between a movie about a talking pig and a world gone insane, fighting over gasoline, as they say in Mad Max 2. But it's true. Babe is an innocent person who has to enter a place of suffering, and him being the sweet pig that he is doesn't keep him safe. But it's a lot like Mad Max in that way. Max is driven to madness, especially as he tried to stay away from his life as a police officer and get away from the troubles of the world. Here, Babe is not a revenge seeker like Max, and his reaction to the mad world is still to maintain true to who he is. So I think it's another exploration by Miller of similar themes, an innocent person who enters a sadistic world. Babe responds to that much differently than Max, and is another angle of a similar theme. Look for the film online, and a lot of sources call it a visually striking film, just like I have. A search for the film calls it one of the most visually inventive films of the 1990s. That's a very tall compliment about a decade known for quite a revolution in filmmaking. So you can see what I'm getting at here. And I think it's a cautionary tale for a lot of studios, considering the movie had a $90 million budget but only made back close to $70 million in box office. I'm, of course, all in favor of creative control for directors, but I'm sure after this release, Universal Pictures looked at the bottom line and wasn't too happy. In fact, Universal's CEO at the time resigned shortly after this movie and Meet Joe Black's failure. Peter Gabriel's song That'll Do, which he composed with Randy Newman, was nominated for the Best Original Song at the 71st Academy Awards. There was a 2006 PlayStation video game based on the movie. Well, in actuality, it was based on both the original movie and the sequel. I found some clips of the gameplay online, and it looks horrendous. Just a pig scrolling around his farm, trying to herd sheep. Yep. And George Miller would bounce back from the commercial failure of Pig in the City with Happy Feet, which won tons of box office dollars and an Oscar win for Best Animated Feature. One last thing we haven't mentioned is that E.G. Daily took over as voicing Babe. If you don't know, E.G. Daily is the multi-talented singer, actor, and voice actor. She's Pee-wee's girlfriend in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and as a voice actor, played none other than Tommy Pickles on Rugrats. Well, the original voice of Babe was the late Christine Cavanaugh, who was the original voice of Chucky Finster on Rugrats, Dexter on Dexter's Laboratory, and Gosselin Mallard in Darkwing Duck, among other roles. So it's interesting to me that 2 members of Rugrats would voice Babe. But the Rugrats connection doesn't end there, as oddly enough, the Rugrats movie was released in November of 1998, the same time as Pig in the City. So Ichi Daily had 2 competing movies. Lastly, for your retro nostalgia, the box office at that moment was A Bug's Life, the Rugrats movie, Enemy of the State, and The Waterboy. That's early Pixar, classic 90s cartoon, and Will Smith and Adam Sandler movies. That's so emblematic of that time, for those of us that lived it. No? Okay, that's all I have for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. And if you haven't seen it yet, and like, well, really odd experiments in movies, check out Babe, Pig in the City. And if you haven't seen it before, what do you think? Or excuse me, if you have seen it before, what do you think? Is it entertaining to watch Babe learn about the trouble of big city life, or kind of uncomfortable? You can reach out and let me know on Blue Sky using the link in the transcript, or just search for Will Turntail. And if you like this episode, would you please take a minute or 2 of your time to leave me a review or rating on this podcast if you haven't done that already? A few people have rated it before, and I so appreciate that. It makes a massive difference. Or if you're listening on YouTube, hit that like button and subscribe, please. New episodes of this podcast come out on Thursdays. This is the part where I tell you for the last month or 2 that next week's episode will be Frank Darabont's The Mist. Let's see if I actually sit down and finish writing that one, or find something else that's shiny I'd rather do instead. The Mist is a great movie, but I keep not wanting to be in the mode to talk about it. I'm tempted to do a dive into a number of Brandon Lee movies that are not The Crow, for just about no reason other than watching one of his movies recently. For those that don't know, yes, Brandon Lee is the actor son of Bruce Lee, who also died tragically. So that film exploration might happen. So either way, come back next week for The Mist, Brandon Lee movies, or something completely different. This podcast episode is production copyright of Outragged Media LLC, located in Sacramento, California. Reference photos linked in the transcript are copyrighted by the Internet Movie Database. This review's factual information was gathered through online sources like Wikipedia, IMDb, or interviews. Misrepresentations and errors are possible, but unintentional. The introduction music was Neon Laser Horizon by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license, and the exit music and additional music are also by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com, also licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. The names of those songs are Voxel Revolution, Vibing Over Venus, and Proto Funk. See you next time.